Welcome to the APM podcast. APM is the chartered body for the project profession. My name is Emma DeVita and I'm the editor of Project, APM's quarterly journal and your host today. In this podcast, we're talking about the secrets of being a great project manager. It's January and the time of year when many of us have New Year's resolutions or maybe just a vague idea of how we want to change things up. So listen on for some excellent advice from APM's Chartered Project Professional of the Year, Tamsin Alli-Balogun, who's also Associate Director for Transport at Actis Realis, Paul Chapman OBE of the University of Oxford Saïd Business School, where he is Academy Director of the UK Government's Major Project Leadership Academy, Andy Alder, Managing Director for Major Infrastructure Delivery at Anglian Water, and Anne-Marie Purcell of Purcell Advisory. If you want even more top tips, then listen to our first instalment of this podcast back in January 2025. First, let's listen to Tamsin Alli-Balogun for her secrets to success. She says to keep focus on what you need to do every day to achieve what needs to get done on your project is what's needed. Keep asking yourself, what are we trying to do on this project? And prioritise. And finally, remember that no project manager can be excellent at everything.
I think when it comes to a great project manager, it's very context specific. So I think different project managers can be great in different contexts. But in terms of kind of what you tend to see when people are being great as project managers, what they tend to be doing. So I think the first thing I would say is that it's all about that focus on what the project is aiming to do, and keeping that daily kind of practice of focusing on what is this project aiming to do, and therefore what do I need to do as a project manager to get that project kind of towards that aim, as well as I can. And I think where that goes wrong and where people aren't as great perhaps in their project management as they could be is where you gather all the great knowledge of the tools and the techniques and the best practice, but you lose sight of what you're trying to achieve, and you can get lost then in doing all of those best practices, and they no longer become best practice. It would be a best practice in another context perhaps, but because you've lost track on sort of where you're going, you start to use the tools in a way that isn't kind of as pragmatic as it could be. So I think that's one thing, is just to keep asking yourself, what are we trying to do with this project? What are we aiming at? And what do I need to do? What do I need to use? And how do I need to use it to steer this project and this team in the right direction? So that'd be the first thing. I think kind of related to that is about prioritizing. So prioritize. We cannot do everything that we need to do as a project manager or that we want to do, because time is constrained, and there's always going to be lots of things that people want us to do, etc. So it's all about what are our biggest risks, what are the issues that we need to deal with urgently, what are our stakeholder expectations, what do we need to make sure other people know, and therefore kind of in our day-to-day making sure that we're really staying focused on the priority things, and again not getting kind of distracted into the things that we might enjoy as a project manager, kind of tidying up this and that register and schedule and these sorts of things. We need them, but we need to make sure we're using them in a way that kind of lets us deal with the priorities and kind of takes us forward.
Okay, that sounds like two pieces of really great advice. I wanted to ask you about the people side of things. So the way that you manage people, is there anyone that you've worked with or that you recognise in yourself that you do well and helps make you a really good project manager?
So I think it's really important as project managers that we influence, and how we influence is a really personal thing. There is not one way of being influential. I think that's the risk, is when you look at how other people influence, you think, oh, they are influencing really well, people listen to them. If you are not them and you try to kind of just reproduce what they do, you might well find that doesn't work for you. So I think kind of influencing and being able to deal with people well is one of those trial and error things. As a project manager, you have to find your way. You have to find your way that works for your personality, for your skill set, for your career stage, and it will be different for everybody. So I've kind of learned different bits of kind of how I influence or how I kind of manage situations from different people that I've seen kind of do it well. I think in particular, someone I used to work with who was actually more in management than in project management, but she was brilliant at chairing a meeting just excellent at kind of keeping everybody on track and really owning it. And that is something that I do try to emulate when I'm trying to kind of work through a workshop. It's really important that you cover everything in the time, and being able to sort of stop people when we're going down rabbit holes and kind of finding ways of bringing everybody back on track in a way that's polite, that kind of builds that rapport, but is really clear, is something that I've learned. I learned first from her, and I've kind of made a bit of a reputation for myself around being able to do that quite well. So that's one aspect of kind of when you're in a group situation. But I think when we're dealing kind of one-to-one with people, there's a very different kind of skill set needed there. And sometimes it will be a more kind of reverent position that we will take, and a more kind of humbly asking for advice. And, kind of people will feel more likely to trust us if they feel like we're listening to them. So that can be, actually quite a powerful way of influencing, is actually to give people that time to listen and kind of respect their view and build the rapport that way. And then in other situations, it'll be much more directive, and people will be looking to us, to find out, what they need to do, and really, really kind of hanging on every word. And so I think you've got to be flexible as a project manager. You've got to be able to read that situation as best you can, try things and change, and be open to kind of realizing that a situation didn't go very well. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that next time you need to kind of think a little bit differently about how you approach it, plan it a little bit differently, and try again. Because that we will all have conversations that don't go well. Even however experienced we are, nobody's ever kind of perfected it, because it's always so kind of context specific.
Yes, you're right. And I really like what you're saying. I think part of what you're saying is know yourself and what works for you. So I think maybe you can pick and choose what you admire from other people that seem successful, but then you make it your own, where you work what's best for you, and to have that adaptability to different situations. And I guess you're just learning the whole time how to do it better, don't you, from every experience you have. I just had a couple of last questions. One would be, what's the difference between a good project manager and someone who's excellent? The people that you notice. Is that something you've ever thought about or noticed?
I think that's a really good question, and I think it's one that all project managers kind of should be asking of themselves. Am I excelling at what I do? And I think my view is that once you've achieved kind of competence as a project manager, by which I mean you've got some theory behind, you've got some qualifications, you've developed some confidence, and you've kind of developed your network a bit, you've got that experience of different types of projects, you're starting to feel like you do know what you're doing, and that this is the career for you. Being able to show excellence then becomes context specific, and it's back to the fact that you come with your own strengths. So project management is really broad, there's loads of bits to it. I'm not brilliant at all the bits. I don't think any of us could say that we were. So there will be contexts and projects and people where if you put me as a project manager, I will do brilliantly well. There'll be other contexts where you put me as a project manager and I hope I would be competent, but I might accept competent as the best I could do in that situation. And that's why I think as we go through a career and we work on different types of projects, realizing and working out kind of which are those contexts that allow us to bring out our strengths and to do what we do with kind of skills experience that we've got really well. That's really what you're aiming for, isn't it? So that you can thrive in your career, and people that have got different skill sets and project managers that kind of prefer a slightly different way of working can go into those kind of other contexts and do brilliantly well there. So I think there's space for all of us, but sometimes when you feel like, oh, perhaps I'm not as good as I thought I was, you probably just found yourself in the wrong context for your particular kind of skill set at that time. It's not to say you could never thrive in that, but perhaps right now a different type of project might be a better fit.
Okay, I love that. Then finally, because we're recording this in January, and people tend to make New Year's resolutions, and I think the stats say by now most people have given up on them. Like we were over halfway through January. But it is a good point. It's kind of the time of year when everyone thinks about what they might want to change or do better. And I wondered if you had any New Year's resolutions or any ideas about or any focus on what you want to improve or work on in terms of being a project manager in 2026.
Yes, I am. I do like to kind of take the beginning of the year to think, well, Christmas is over and it's that kind of little space at the start of the year before everything gets busy. So I do tend to kind of be like a kind of a New Year's resolution type. For me this year, I think it's about being slightly more deliberate in reading around the subject. And it's not to say that I haven't read around the subject of project management in the past, but I do tend to just pick out the bits I'm really interested in and read more about those bits and skim over, perhaps the things that don't jump out at me as being kind of quite so interesting. But what I think I've kind of realized that does tend to take you a little bit into something of an echo chamber where you're only ever listening to things that you kind of enjoy hearing, and maybe focus on areas of project management that you already probably do quite well and maybe don't need to kind of focus as much on in rounding yourself off and working to that kind of that standard of excellence that we're all kind of doing as we go through our career. So I think for me, that means, for example, when I get Project Magazine, read all of it, not just flick it and read the bits that, oh, I like that topic, I'll read that. Because I've found that as I've started to do that, and I have started, you do think actually that was more interesting than I thought it would be. It was more relevant to me than I thought it would be. So it's that sort of judging a book by its cover, and kind of just getting past that and being a bit more disciplined. So that might be on social media. It might be, as I say, with Project Magazine. It might be that I'll go to some webinars or some events where the topic doesn't jump out at me at first, but I think actually this is where I need to be finding out like what this does mean for me, and that's where I'll kind of learn more this year. So I think that's my main one. And then I think there's also, because I won the Chartered Project Professional of the Year award last year, which was all about recognizing people who give back to the profession. And I do give back to the profession, so it's lovely to have that recognition. But it does make me think, okay, the more that you are recognized for doing it, the more you feel that duty, the more of a platform you have to sort of be that role model. So the other part for me is thinking, what does that mean for me to be a role model? Where are there opportunities that I'm not taking to kind of give back more, or give back in a slightly more kind of strategic way? Or perhaps it's kind of to do some more deeper mentoring with project managers. Where can I get better at doing that? So I don't think we should ever be kind of complacent.
Okay, Tamsin, that was brilliant. Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think the only thing that I would like to add probably is about being proud of what we do. And this is something that I've been on quite a journey with in my career, because when I moved into my current organization, which is an engineering design organization primarily, I really felt conscious that most people were engineers and I wasn't. And I didn't feel as proud to be arriving as a project manager as I look back and I think I should have been. So I think being proud of kind of what you do as a project professional is really important to kind of keep your confidence going, to keep your morale up when things inevitably get harder and easier as the year goes on. So in those kind of low points, I think having that pride, and where you can kind of draw on that pride, is by going out and kind of spending time with other project professionals, which is what I do, and I love it. And I get really excited these days for networking, where it's, other events where I will be with other project professionals. Don't even have to be talking about projects. It's just getting to know other people who are in similar kind of roles to you, listening to them talking about what they do. I feel like this kind of really helps you understand the impact of this career, this profession on society. And it really does make you much more proud to kind of be doing what you're doing. And then you can bring that pride kind of back into your day to day. So I think that's something that I would love to see more project managers starting to get engaged this year, with the profession, to build their own networks, and just to kind of see how much that kind of rounds you off as a project manager and gives you that energy.
Now let's listen to Paul Chapman, who believes that a great project manager is someone who is doing something they love. Project professionals really shine when the work they do is something they feel passionate about and bring their talents to bear.
I won't make any claims about me, but I have a very fortunate position of working with a lot of different project managers. So I think I've got to see in action somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000, which is not a bad data set. And there are a few of them that really stand out. I think the jumping off point here is being good excellent. Yeah, we love that. But the question is, what makes a great project manager? And I think one of the things that really stands out is people doing something they love. And there's something about project professionals, which is they can get projects done. And yeah, some days better than others, some projects better than others, but you can see they really shine when it's something they feel passionate about and they can bring all their talents to bear. And I think that's important because as professionals, we should be professional. And then you're on at your best when it's something you love doing. So there's not just being good at it, which practice and technique. There's that kind of next layer. And I think in the really great project managers that they're doing something more. So getting the project done, well done, round of applause, but they're thinking left and right. They're thinking up and down. And I think the left and right is important, by which I mean sort of timeline. They're thinking about the outcome that they will deliver. So great project managers understand operations. When we land this capability in a practice, what will it do? What are some of the tricky things that we'll encounter in the future, next week, the week after, next month? When it's been running for 10 years, okay. So they're doing stuff now in anticipation of that, but they're sort of thinking to the left as well, which is sort of thinking back in time, which is kind of that they're sort of planning the next project. So great project managers getting stuff done should have been in place to advise people when they were thinking about the project. In the public sector, advising on policy. In the private sector, advising on strategy and planning. We're going to do some wondrous thing. The great project manager is on hand to provide that advice. You can do pretty much anything in any way. However, I would recommend these following things. I think that's the thinking sort of left and thinking right. And the thinking up, thinking down idea is love them or loathe them. Most of us operate in a hierarchy. There are people with sort of authority, different levels of power. Hey ho, let's just run with that. Really great project managers can think up. So what are their clients thinking? What are the demands and challenges they face? Or in an organization, what's the boss thinking? And actually what's their boss thinking? So trying to understand their position to anticipate the challenges. So if project managers are the people getting stuff done, they're often reporting into people who have to manage budgets and finance, and for reasons outside of everyone's control, the spending this year might not be as much or could be more than anticipated. Great project managers have already explored those ideas. Maybe the organization's strategy has had to pivot. Great project managers have anticipated that. And then thinking down, one of the things we really took away from COVID pandemic experience was really understanding who frontline workers are, because they're really the people who get stuff done. And great project managers know about the people who will be delivering the project, so operational leaders, but also frontline staff. So they're acting as, at the risk of using a fancy term, interlocutor, that they're working across boundaries and representing interests up and representing interests down. So they're very enabling and supportive. So I think that's some of the things that they do. They also do something more in terms of legacy. We think about the iron triangle, getting projects done on cost, on time, deliver. I think that often misses a fourth something, or stool, triangle. The fourth thing, which is people. And it was the sort of late Martin Barnes who referred to project management as people getting stuff done. And the people element is really important. On a bad day on a project, you can get stuff done, but you're really squeezing the asset, bleeding the resource. Basically, the consequences on people. And great project managers use the project to develop and enhance capability, not deplete it. And I think that leans in a little bit of, what do the great project managers look to achieve? Well, get the project done, yes, and also leave a legacy. And often that legacy is in that team. They're better. They've had exposure. They've had experience. They've come on because of the project. And I think somewhere in there is also this mix of having anticipated some stuff goes right and some stuff goes wrong. So how do you protect and support the team and treat them as adults? It didn't go quite to plan. What did we learn? It did go to plan and some. What did we learn? And then they're also communicating that up the hierarchy, which, again, to fancy pants it, is about exploring exploring risk appetite and really explaining and giving seniors visibility. Can you guarantee me that this gets done? Of course I can't. There's a risk. I will outline the risk, but we can also explain the opportunity that exists. So giving options for what if things start to crack under the strain, what can we do to close the project down, secure revenue as is, but also if things start to go right, where might some options be to explore this and expose this a bit further and really release the potential. So great project managers, doing something that they love, doing it well, doing it professionally, leaving a legacy. Do you know, the only thing I'd add is, and I'm sort of, it's the place where it's the really good understanding of data and performance. So I know what I do, and I can see results that come from my effort and our team's efforts. But how does that really fit into a wider landscape? And that's where we need really good data. And I think the analogy is with people in medicine. So, that they do their best to support patients and get patients' families and so on. And they'll always give the best advice. But medicine and public health is all about understanding statistics and efficacy. And we have a version of that in project management, which is, if I do this, do I get that? And it might not be guaranteed. It might not be a straight line, but it might be, if you do this, you are more likely to get the output you sought than doing option B. And that requires data, and that requires a sort of degree of science to be in operation at a professional level. So understanding data and performance and understanding efficacy, but also contributing to that understanding, I think, is the way the profession moves forward collectively. So not so much people getting this project done, but the profession getting projects done better, where the profession is individuals. So there's something in there as well. Can't quite put my finger on it as precisely.
Andy Alder tells us that he's never come across a great project manager who isn't also a great project leader, because in the real world, you need to bring those two things together. To be successful, you need to have a positive mindset and the resilience to deal with setbacks that come along. A top productivity tip: if you're faced with a problem, start dealing with that challenge straight away. Just get on with it. Let's listen on for some more wise words.
I think it's a combination of clearly there's the skills, of a project manager, all the kind of the functions that sit within project management, and having the kind of skills and knowledge to apply those. But I think that's the kind of foundation. I don't think I know we understand what the difference is between leadership and management, but I've never ever come across a good project manager who's also not a good leader, because in practice you need to bring those together, because everything to apply the skills and the methods of project management and to make them effective, we need to bring people with us, and therefore there's that kind of good dose of leadership to go with it. And then I think the kind of the mindset piece is around, project management for small projects and large projects, you get hit all the time with challenges that come along, issues that arise. So having that kind of positive mindset to understand and be focused on what you're trying to achieve and not lose sight of that, and to see your way through the challenges that come along, and to have the resilience to deal with those kind of setbacks, is important. I think there's also a healthy dose of, without beginning too kind of pessimistic about things, there's a healthy dose of thinking about what could go wrong here, what are the things that could really go wrong here, and what we're going to do to avoid them going wrong. So there's a kind of blend of optimism of dealing with stuff, and pessimism of thinking like, what could go wrong? What are they to do to stop that going wrong?
Is there anything about, so it's 2026, beginning of the new year, there's so much change that's come about in the last few years. I'm thinking of AI, kind of geopolitical change. Have you got any advice to people about how to manage all this change? And it's ever increasing. And it's fundamentally could change the way we work, and we are working. What advice would you give to project managers about dealing well with this and kind of thriving rather than just kind of flailing about and feeling confused and anxious about everything?
Yeah, it's I mean, you're right. There's a lot going on, a lot of change, and clearly we need to be conscious of that and think about how that affects what we're trying to do. But there is a danger you could spend all of your time worrying about all the change that's going on and how to navigate. So I think there's a bit of trying to simplify things a bit to understand, okay, what is the change that's going on? How do I know enough about that to know what I've got to do to manage my way through it? And then focus on the things you can do to manage through change. And I guess that's like a lot of challenges that come up in project management, is that there's an element of judgment of how much detail do I need to know about this problem to know what have I got to do to manage this problem. And once you get to the point of, right, well, I could learn more and more about it, but I know enough to know that actually the thing I need to do is this, and then put your energy in the thing that you can do to kind of work your way through those challenges. I think it's definitely AI is, I mean, such a powerful tool. We you started to use it a lot, can make life, it can help to process some certain things we have to do. But like any tool like that, it's that dose of judgment you need with it to make sure that you're asking the right questions, and the answers you get back, applying the judgment to say, is this really what the right thing is here?
Lastly, we're recording this in January. It's traditionally the time of year when people think about New Year's resolutions, obviously, and self-improvement. Have you got any focus for self-improvement this year? And if not, are there any kind of personal productivity hacks, tips that you've picked up that you'd pass on?
Yeah, personally, I know one of my tendencies is I like to really empower teams. I like to really empower people to lead what they're doing. I know because I'm interested in the stuff we're doing, I've got a personal tendency to get in the detail. And so I've always got to coach myself to get in the detail when it helps, but not too much that I'm disempowering people. And I've got to constantly kind of coach myself on that. I guess the big thing for me is if there's a challenge, if there's a problem that's come along today, deal with it today. We can end up pushing problems and we'll deal with that on tomorrow, and they just get bigger and bigger. There's nothing better than problems come up. Let's get hold of it and deal with it today. And certainly there was things on back on Cross-Sell and on Tideway where just because we got hold of a challenge and we got the right people around the table and we got hold of a challenge quickly and early, we stopped that becoming much, much bigger.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. That's great. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
Big part of this is keeping that focus on the end goal. What is it we're all trying to achieve? Making sure that everyone understands that end goal and they understand the activity that they're doing, the part of the project they're working on, how what they're doing links in with everybody else, and how that all feeds to meet that end goal. As well as the skills of being a project manager, helping the whole team to see how they all come together to deliver what you're trying to deliver is a massive part of it.
Finally, let's get some top tips from Anne-Marie Purcell. She says a great project manager is someone who has a passion for hitting deadlines, delivering outcomes, having grit, and being skilled at whack-a-mole. You also need to be a really good people person to be able to influence and motivate your team to come along with you and be good at conflict management that comes with change. Treat your team like a family, she says.
I think a person who likes process is great, but actually what makes a really good project manager is someone who has a passion for hitting deadlines and delivering outcomes. For me, there's people who do the job, who follow the right ways of working and do the right things. But the difference is somebody who actually, that deadline and that outcome really, really matters. That for me is what makes a really great project manager. And in terms of skills, and personality, I think it's someone who has grit and determination, someone who doesn't take no for an answer, and someone who comes up with solutions to problems consistently. So for me, I use the terminology whack-a-mole, constantly whacking a mole and getting rid of a problem in order to hit your deadline. And that steely-eyed focus on it is really what makes a great project manager.
Are there all of those skills or qualities that you can learn to get better at, or is it something very much just what you have?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think some people can learn kind of confidence and grit and solutionize, and I think they're the things that people can probably get. I think, however, that kind of in your belly gut about kind of the deadline matters is something that does come only for certain people. I think if you get stressed about a deadline rather than kind of running at it and pushing through it, I think it's probably not the right role for you. I've met people who think they want to be project managers, but find stress and deadlines very challenging. And for me, they're probably in the wrong job. I think you have to be someone who takes it on as a challenge, a deadline, and kind of loves the intensity and the adrenaline from it. And that's probably something that you can't learn. I think that's probably part of your personality. But definitely you can learn grit and solutionize. And I think they're the things that you can learn. But probably that kind of in your gut ability to deal and want to deal with challenge and stress and adrenaline for a deadline is probably so in your personality.
What about when it comes to managing people and motivating people and getting a project team aligned? Is there anything that you've learned over the years that makes for a great project manager? What do they get right?
I think people who are really good people, I think that matters. I mean, if you think about what a project manager does, they don't do some of the work themselves. They rely on other people to do it. So you need to be able to influence and encourage people to matter about this project as much as you do, to care about the outcome and the deadline as much as you do, and influence them to go that bit further or do that work or solve a problem with you. So I definitely think someone who is a people person, I think, is helpful. But in turn, not too soft. I think, you have to be pretty robust, because often you are faced with difficult conversations. There's a lot of conflict management in the role in terms of either solving conflicts between groups of individuals or, directly. There can be quite a bit of conflict. Change generally can make people scared and, for all emotional reasons, and having being able to deal with that, and that's often directed at you, and being able to deal with it without taking it personally and having a level of empathy about where people are coming from and how to resolve them conflicts with a bit of empathy and not taking it personally, I think is quite important, really.
Okay, thank you. And finally, just to ask you, what makes a kind of competent project manager a great project manager? What makes someone stand out at it?
Project management can often be peaks and troughs. I mean, the last big changes I did weren't, but a lot of them are peaks and troughs. And people who understand that and kind of take the peaks with the peaks will be the people who are successful in project management. For me, people who see it as a process that they follow, and if the deadline is hit, the deadline's hit. If it's not and it slips, for me, are the people who will I'm sure will do fine, but won't necessarily blow people away or go up that chain in a career. They'll be the people who kind of stay at a project management level. For me, I can kind of spot people who are just there to do the project management role, and those people who have got the ability to go much further with it, really.
Sounds great, like a superpower. You can get attract all the best people for your teams because you can spot them.
Well, it is helpful.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
For me, I think project managers who treat the teams as families is another one for me. Doing big change and transformation, you spend a lot of time together and having each other's back and knowing when other people need support in your team and understanding where people's skills and strengths are and playing that tune, particularly as a leader, playing that between your team. Not all project managers are the same. They all have different strengths and weaknesses, and knowing how to play together as a team. And also, being, it doesn't mean you always have to get on. It's like any family. But when you become tight as a team, they're the people who will get you through big change and transformation. And I think being able to work really effectively as a team player is undoubtedly a massive priority for me as a project manager.
I hope you've learned a lot from what it means to be a great project manager. So thanks again to Tamsin, Paul, Andy and Anne-Marie for joining us, and to you for listening to the APM podcast. Don't forget to look out for more episodes or to rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. We welcome you to get in touch with your comments, feedback and suggestions by emailing us at apmpodcast@thinkpublishing.co.uk. Spotify users, please do also leave us your comments. This podcast has been brought to you by APM, the chartered body for the project profession. For more information on APM, visit apm.org.uk.